We did. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, after the Colombia unrests and protests in the streets, after the human rights disaster in Afghanistan. So in a way, it's natural for us to meet, but unfortunately, we happen to always be meeting at times when it's really a struggle. But I encourage you in this call then to think about the reasons we meet as a global movement. IRCT is put together of medical professionals, health professionals, human rights activists who really are together in the anti-torture fight, but are also there to support communities who are impacted. And I've seen you and we've seen ourselves pivoting rapidly after COVID-19 to go into more humanitarian response mode while maintaining our focus on mental health and the psychological care that's needed. But I think, again, at this time, we're also seeing a lot of the member centers pivoting to respond to refugee influxes, the humanitarian needs of people on the run, and of course, the psychosocial impact. So our modality today was to understand better what member centers are doing to respond to the over 1 million refugees, and of course, those who are impacted in Ukraine, to provide support to each other. There can be some technical support that can be given, professional support that can be given, but it's mainly to understand, provide that support, show our solidarity, and then hopefully also be able to garner some support moving forward for some of the activities that are being done by some of the IRCT centers around the globe. The format is not more formal than that. So at this point, I'm going to just tell you that at the Secretariat in Copenhagen, our team of 12, we've been receiving messages from around the world on how the Russian invasion of Ukraine has impacted people. We've got messages of people being re-triggered, re-traumatized, even those who are not from Ukraine or from this region, reliving some of the same experience they had when they had to flee their country. So the impact is global. We've also heard from members on the ground, and we'll hear now in the call from even more. At this point, I will hand over then to our president, Leila, who sits in Georgia, in Tbilisi, and let you start off. And then the format will be like this. You just signal, you raise your hand if you would like to contribute to the conversation. What's going on in your country? How are you responding? And of course, we'll focus on the member centers in the region, but everyone is invited to this conversation. So with those words and hopefully the understanding that this conversation is also being recorded because many member centers, among others in the US who wanted to participate but couldn't because of the timing, would really like to hear what the member centers are doing. So Leila, with those words, over to you.
Good afternoon to most of you and good night to some of you. Very happy to see a lot of familiar faces, although this is a rather harrowing event that gathered us all together. For me personally, this is an extremely personal and emotional issue, apart from experiencing on a much smaller scale, of course, and being re-triggered by the Russian invasion of Georgia in 2008. We at GCRT will have a very personal connection to Ukraine. During the days of Maidan, a team of GCRT's professionals, we flew to Ukraine. So we were there all throughout the process of whatever came out of Maidan. We have a lot of very close colleagues there. For years, we have been funding for organizations in Ukraine who have been providing services to victims of torture. Unfortunately, none of them could be here. Our colleagues in Kiev, the IRC, some of them are on the run, some of them are hiding. Our colleagues in Kharkiv and Nikopol, they are all hiding in the villages. Our colleagues in Dnipro, they are trying to evacuate their staff and help those in need. So primarily what we at GCRT are doing, we are monitoring the situation of our colleagues and asking them if there's any way we can be of support and providing moral support, which is something that is highly appreciated. We also work with, in the context of Georgian Society of Psychotrauma, which is now hosted by GCRT because I'm the chair, we're providing webinars for Ukrainian mental health professionals, because apart from a big number of refugees coming to the EU, there's even bigger internal displacement. There are millions displaced to Western Ukraine. So for instance, on Saturday, we had about 120 people attending a 2-hour webinar. So I just want to emphasize that people there, they want to help, they want to use their profession in the service of helping the communities. We are hearing very bad facts coming from those cities that are under siege. Mariupol, for instance, rape, torture, killing. That's also a humanitarian catastrophe there. Yesterday, a child died of dehydration. The city doesn't have anything. We are here, and we also have the knowledge that unfortunately the worst is yet to come in terms of the civilian casualties, in terms of the torture, in terms of actions that Russian soldiers will do. And for instance, from our perspective, we have a very personal experience and very intimate knowledge of what Russian army is capable of. I just want to emphasize, with Asker's help, actually, we are helping the Ukrainian prosecutor's office document crimes that are committed against children. Also, in the context of other international networks, we are participating in, because Georgia has an experience of working with the ICC, International Criminal Court. We are helping colleagues. At this point, it's just a setup of a preliminary task force working in that direction. And also, getting ready, because we don't have that many refugees yet. However, there's a coordination mechanism with the UNHCR, and we are preparing to receive a number of refugees from Ukraine. And I'm seeing Lila, for instance, right now on my screen. And I think for a lot of us, it's not just Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it revives our historical traumas of totalitarianism, of the Soviet rule, how I don't know, 2 of my grandfathers were executed, for instance, during the Stalinistic regime. So it brings up a lot. However, it also gives strength that now finally, it's not just Eastern Europe that knows the menace that Soviet Union was and Russia is. So now finally, at a very high price, but the world has come to an understanding what threats Russia poses to the world. Sorry if I may have been slightly emotional, and thank you for giving me the floor. And I'm very interested to hear what our colleagues are doing in different parts of Europe, and what is the what are the sentiments, what is the readiness, and so on.
Thank you very much, Leila, and no need for apologies whatsoever about being emotional. I think everyone involved and observing the situation is emotional, but of course you more than others who have been so close to it. I did see one hand. Hugh, did you want to make a comment here?
No, it was supposed to be an applause. I mean, I'm just saying, yeah, I don't think there's any need for apologies about feeling emotional about on this situation either. But I will not take up any more time.
Thank you. So at this time, and with that very, I think, appropriate introduction and eyewitness account from Leila's side, are there others who would like to contribute what you're feeling, what you're doing, what you see going on around you? I see Lila Hardy from Hungary has got her hand up. So Lila, would you like to lead us off? I think you have to unmute, Lila.
Yes, thank you very much. After Lila's emotions, I will not overload you with mine, but I think all of us from the former from the countries formerly occupied by Russian forces or Soviet forces have certain memories. So it's high time to brush. The first issue that came to my mind, high time to brush up my Russian knowledge. Because over 100,000 persons have crossed the borders of Hungary from Ukraine. I don't know if everybody knows me. I'm Lila Hardy from Cordelia Foundation, for those whom we are not, we haven't got acquainted with. So what you can imagine, I think, is in Hungary, it is existing in Poland, in, I think, Moldova, maybe Ludmila will add something, or any country where Ukrainians or people of Ukrainian origin or Ukrainian background enter a very chaotic situation. So people are coming, some of them are going, some of them are searching shelter, some of them are offered shelter. So this is time for volunteering on the railway stations and on the first places what they reach. For our foundation, this was time to revitalize the previously limited capacities and to prepare to go out to places. Today is the first day after 2 weeks when I received proper information where to go. We try to recruit interpreters. I have offered training from one group of interpreters how to interpret psychology, psychiatry, and trauma. The second group is coming soon. We recruit people of Russian and Ukrainian language background, psychologists, psychiatrists to join the group. Everybody has moved here in this country. What is very strange regarding our recent past, when people were very reluctant moving their energies, when it was about... Sorry?
I think Leila's taking care of her kid in the background.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's Ludmila, it's not me.
It's okay. So this is time for a huge preparation and detection. Detecting where they are located and screening in among what circumstances they have settled temporarily or constantly, and what is their near future. Trauma therapy or rehabilitation therapy, of course, can be prepared to have longer term interventions. We have a network of civil organizations. We are the psycho team, there is the social team and the legal team, and there are a lot of other civil organizations who refer clients to us and we refer clients to them. So the network has been moved. We are searching out and reaching for donors. So from morning till night, I'm sitting in front of the screen. During 2 meetings, I have the patients. So life is very hectic and people are very enthusiastic. We shall see. There is no governmental support. There are certain governmental organizations in charge of arranging the basics. We shall see how far they go. So this is the situation in short here in Hungary, but I think the other neighboring countries who are also doing the first steps for reaching out for clients will say more.
Thank you very much, Leila. Exactly, this kind of go into action mode. You can hear it, you know the drill, you've done it before. So I think it's quite natural to move as fast as you do. And I'm really glad to hear that this response is happening in such a systematic way. That's Hungary. Ludmila, would you like to speak now?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Sorry, micro was here. What to say? Indeed, all of us are very tired now, and all of us have emotions. In Moldova, situation is very, very hard. I just sent to you a document about humanitarian effort by country. Moldova is a very small country, but we are receiving a lot of refugees. We have two big groups of refugees. First one, people who are in transit in Moldova, but they are staying here 1, 2 days, 3 days in 1 week in order to find where to go. And the second big group, which is enlarging with every day, are people who decided to stay in Moldova. It's very, very hard. It's very difficult. Chisinau already is full. It's impossible to find a place to stay. Other localities also. And sorry. And our team is very involved. We are trying to cooperate with any organization from Moldova, with authorities. We are giving medicines, emergency medical support, and psychological support. And we are trying now to divide our responsibilities, and we are trying now actively to identify people who are living somewhere in Chisinau or in other localities, who are alone in the rented or offered places, apartments. They are very, very scared. We have a big problem in Moldova with pro-Russian people because, yes, and we have a big problem because on media appeared a lot of hate, how to say, speeches or fake information about refugees, fake information about bad refugees, etc., etc. It's very hard. That's why people are staying inside, are afraid to go in the street. Yes, here is the document. You can see the humanitarian effort in Moldova is very high, and our country is very poor. Since the beginning, I appreciate a very high effort of Moldovans, people who decided to support, who brought food, everything refugees need at the border, are helping with transportation until the border with Romania, are helping a lot. But you can understand this enthusiasm can slow down in the next future, because it's difficult. People can give 1, 2, 3 more days, but it's not so easy. Okay, our authorities are very open towards refugees. Moldova will receive support, and the UNHCR became very active here. They are trying to provide all the needed support to refugees. Now, as center, we are trying to find any financial possibility to cover the basic needs and the essential medicines, essential support to them. A lot of people, a lot of women of very small babies, we need money for baby care, baby food. We need money for everything. So that's why now we're trying to find any possibility. We are cooperating with various private donors from abroad, people who are sending packages and are sending to us what we need. We are trying to raise here at local level food, toys, clothes, everything they need in order to support them. It's hard, it's very hard, because our team is very small. Our people are very tired, and the budget for this year isn't so good. We have only money from UN Voluntary Fund for torture victims for this target group. And we are trying now to find another possibility to help them. It's hard, it's really hard. It's beyond my imagination about help to refugees, victims of atrocities and victims of war. It's beyond. Everyone in my team is very involved. Actually, without weekends and sleeping 4-5 hours. It's hard. It's hard. We are working. We have closed group on Facebook for refugees. Now we are creating a separate closed group for refugees from Ukraine because they need information. They need to be connected. They need to be supported. They are scared. They are scared because Moldova is also a target for Russia. Don't forget this. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. It's hard. Okay, many of Moldovans are already abroad. They also decided to go to Romania or to another country. A lot of Moldovans also have their luggage prepared, just in the case. It's very complicated. It's very hard indeed. I don't know how. Okay, we are trying to do our best. This is important. We are trying to keep our team. This is important. And we are trying to involve also volunteers. We assisted before refugees from Ukraine during Donbass war, and now we are trying to involve former our beneficiaries from Ukraine as volunteers in order to help us. It's important. It's important to give to refugees a clear messages. You are supported here. Please trust in our center, trust in us, because they are very, very, very scared. They don't know who in Moldova is friend and who in Moldova can be enemy. Because we have about 40% of pro-Russian electorate who voted in past for Dodon and other pro-Russian leaders. And we have also Transnistria, you know, this separatist region where is dislocated the 14 Russian army. We have a bomb here in Moldova with the Russian army. It's hard indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ludmila. And we understand also, and you're saying it with such emotion, right? The situation is I think, desperate. I think you're trying to keep up the energy also of your staff. It reminds me this care for caregivers is also an incredibly important piece, right? And Leila, I know you've been talking about the same thing, you know, the tendency to burn out, people being both emotionally and professionally engaged, it rides very hard on staff. So your job is also as leaders of these organizations to keep an eye on your staff, to keep them sane and healthy, fed, rested, while they're emotionally engaged. I think it's a real huge challenge.
Yes, Lisa, you are right. We are trying to do this. Again, we have this closed group on Facebook with staff, and we are discussing a lot. We are supporting each other, and we are trying to think about various possibilities and various, but we are thinking about this and we are trying to support staff members. It's hard, indeed, it's hard. One of them has, her family is in the United States, and she said, okay, if situation will be worse, I will go to my family in the United States. What to do? We can't now find, we need one more medical doctor, we need one more psychologist, but we can't find people who are ready to work for Memoria because from another hand, we have always these financial constraints and we have very limited budget for salaries. Okay, we can do a lot of volunteer work, but not forever. Right. That's why it's hard indeed. You are right.
So here you also hear something, and IRCT can support some of the way, not vast, but remember for everyone on the call, we do have an emergency response grant functionality. It's only to a maximum of €5,000, but it's something that you as members have contributed to building. So that option is there. There's a brief application you can fill out, and we can make sure to get everyone on this call that link. But Ludmila, thanks. I would like now to ask, are there others on the call who would like to give a brief input or reflection on what you're doing in your country? We had also invited the team from Romania, but I don't see Camilla on the call with us yet. She was doing
No, I mean, she
Yeah.
was here for some minutes, but then she dropped off. But I do have the pictures if you want me to share, Lisa.
Yeah, maybe we can just briefly show on the screen, because the center in
Yeah.
Romania has been responding from the first days. We'll just show you a couple of the photos they sent in, and then hope Camila will join. Again, she's probably on the move, but they were also involved in organizing like reception for refugees coming in, distribution of food packages, some supplies, distribution of water, exactly. And this is again showing, I think, how member centers are able to pivot into the humanitarian response, because you know so well, providing warm food, water, etc., a place to sleep, a soft mattress, a warm blanket, along with the psychological care that's needed, the mental health support. Of course, these things are what people are preoccupied with as they flee and move onto what they hope and think will be a safer place.
Lisa, I don't know what happened with connection with Camelia. I can't see her, but I know that Romania is very involved, because our people, our volunteers are working a lot at the border with Romania, and they are in contact with people from Romania who are helping very much refugees from Ukraine. It's a huge contribution, huge work, and the centers, I know what the centers of the CAR Foundation are full in all the places and are very involved, again, working day and night. It's very hard, because this humanitarian effort also is very big. Even if, okay, many of them are in transit from Romania, but again, they need help. 1-2 days, 1 week, they need help. A lot of kids. People are crossing very easy Moldova with their papers, documents, but it's difficult to cross Romania and to go to European countries because of lack of documents or something like that. That's why a lot of them will stay in Romania for longer time until they will solve their documents. So Romania is also very involved.
Thank you very much, Ludmila, for filling in. And that's great to hear that there's a coordination and a contact across borders. I think we now have Camila with us. Camila, would you like to speak to the issue and what your organization is doing?
Hi,
Yeah.
good evening. I'm losing the contact. I'm on and off. Okay, so I don't know what was before. But I heard something from Ludmila, who she's really informed. We've been in touch for all this period. So we have three centers operational at the borders with Ukraine. They are called Șomcuta Mare, Rădăuți, and Galați. So that means the northern part of the country and the eastern part of the frontier, the border with Ukraine. So depending where the conflict is, it's more serious, our crossing points are more or less crowded. But no, they are coming from all over. The problem is like that. We had the first wave of refugees coming from the neighboring area, and they were coming to their families in Romania. They were having biometric passports, so they could stay and they don't need to declare for 3 months. So that was and clearly that was a segment of population with financial means. They were coming by nice cars, the kids well dressed, the ladies, and so on. And it was, of course, the profile of this population, mainly women with children and elderly people, because the others between 18 and 60, as you probably know, they were not allowed to leave the country. So we, as Ludmila said, we had a lot of people who stayed more in Romania, mainly because of the lack of documents. So Romanian immigration authorities mobilize themselves and they will provide these documents. Currently, we are not allowed to be closer than 4 kilometers from the crossing points at the borders because it is really a mess. A lot of people are coming there with the food, with all kinds of items to offer, and it's a big crowd. So, and I think this is one of the very important aspects we have to understand, that the logistic in this situation, it's absolutely crucial. And if at the beginning the population was going there generously offering housing and financial even support to these people and comforting them morally and so on. So at one point the authority had to step in and really organize the emergency help, the medical help. Now the Ukrainians, they have the right, if they are in Romania, to get free medical assistance through our public health insurance house. So the physicians, they have just to register them separately and they will have whatever they need. The problem is, of course, in such crisis, even if you are a human rights organization, you have to provide all kinds of support. So it's not, you know, your current work. We are making the medical screening of all the asylum seekers coming in Romania. We are offering psychosocial support and so on. But now we have really to adapt to the needs from the field. And then we jumped also in the humanitarian aid because it's necessary. And we are trying to coordinate the donations we are receiving in these 3 centers. It's quite difficult. We want to organize a kind of a focal point somewhere, probably in Rădăuți, because it's the most developed center we have. And it's the point where most of the people are crossing Romania, and to coordinate all this activity. Our staff is absolutely overworked. They had to work also to implement the current projects we have. We cannot abandon that. And then on top of that, they had to take the other activity and work as volunteers, and really that cannot last because it's difficult, you can imagine. So this is more or less the situation in Romania. We are trying to cope with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Camilla, for that very detailed and I think quite moving report. I mean, of this move to humanitarian response and the stress on your staff, but providing something that's so immensely needed with this huge influx coming to your country. I just want to ask, are there any questions to any of the presentations? And then I see Sarah's got her hand up. Sarah, go ahead.
That was not the question, that was something else.
All right. Let me just quickly check. Anybody have a question? I didn't want to go too quickly over these presentations. Angela, please, from Freedom from Torture.
Thank you, and for organizing this important meeting. I just wanted to salute all of you who are stepping up and providing care in such difficult and exhausting circumstances. And if it's at all helpful, I wonder if some of us in other countries can be of any support for you and your staff to be able to offload some of your feelings. I'm certainly happy to offer this if anyone wants to use this. You may prefer to sleep or listen to music or something else. But we always say you can't pour from an empty cup, and I just want to say that we are all here to support you in this crisis in any way that we can.
Thank you, Angela. I am sure that resonates with many. Leila's got her hand up.
Yeah.
Would you like to respond to that, Leila, please?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Angela. I wanted to mention it earlier too. For instance, when the war in Georgia happened, Christian Pross, he was then an ex-com of IRCT, consultant to the Berlin Center. Against the advice of the German Foreign Ministry, he came to Georgia, to our center, to support us because he was our supervisor, to support us and to lead us through the process. Within a month, for instance, Boris Drostek from the Dutch Center, also against us, came to support us. So what you're mentioning now, this is, for instance, what we, the Georgia Society for Psychotherapy, are doing now for the colleagues in Ukraine. We cannot go there because it's an active war, but virtually. So what you are mentioning is extremely important. This solidarity is exactly what is needed right now. And yeah, this is very, very helpful. And apart from offloading, it kind of gives a sensation that you're not alone. And it also helps you validate that what you are doing is the right way to go. So also for colleagues on the border and on the other side of the border, as well as colleagues in Ukraine, it is very helpful for them. And it gives them a sense of meaning and strength to move forward. So absolutely what you're saying is very relevant.
Thank you very much. And I think this is exactly the reason for having a call here, to get the word out. Here's an offer of direct support from Freedom from Torture, Angela, and probably other members of her team. And we hear that this experience helped before. So, I mean, this is something that can definitely be applicable and useful. I would like to open the floor. Are there others who would like to comment either about what you have going on in your country or expressions of solidarity? Sarah, over to you, Swedish Red Cross, please.
Yes, thanks a lot, Lisa. I mean, if you want, I could share a few words on what we are doing in Sweden, but I also recognize that we are a bit far off. I mean, we're not at all as close as some of you colleagues here, not so much affected yet. So I wanted really to give the space and floor to you first, before we can talk about what we are doing. But if you want to, I could say that
Please go ahead.
now. Yeah, okay. Then I will just try to share a very, very short thing here. And this is just one, and just bear with me, because take it as it is, because things are, as you know, changing rapidly all the time here. So to really say what we are doing, I mean, tomorrow that might look different, and I know you're all aware of that. And also, I mean, again, full support to all of you who just have raised the floor. I mean, taken the floor. I mean, I really, really feel with you in these times. I think we all do. Trying to support you all as best as we can, and still keep our heads cold in a way, to also continue our work here at home. I think this call is excellent to really have this sharing of solidarity between us, but also to share information about what we are doing, because we all know things are changing so much. I think we're all navigating in the sharing of information and disinformation right now. So it's good to hear firsthand from you, trusted colleagues, about what you are doing in your countries. This is just a snapshot of where we are. I mean, Swedish Red Cross, we have 6 treatment centers who are all members of the IRCT. And what we're going through right now is an activation of our internal emergency plan, as we are part of the Swedish Red Cross, also meaning we are an organization who should be prepared to respond to crisis. And in our health and care department, where I then work, first of all, just to say that in our treatment centers, since we have so far not seen many direct effects in Sweden, we have refugees coming, and there are more persons expected in the coming days. But we also need to continue our work in our treatment centers, because we also know that for our current
Sarah?
patients,
Sarah,
we are. Yeah.
just that you're sharing the first slide. Maybe you want to share the second one, which is what you're referring to. I wonder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No
I do
worries.
apologize. Then I would need to share again, I think. I do apologize for that.
And if not, I can share.
Can
since
you do
also
that,
send it to
please?
me. Yeah,
Can you
I'll
do
do
that,
that.
please? It's just one page. It's just the second one.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Exactly. That was the one I wanted to just share with you. Thanks a lot, Berta. Yeah, and just then to say that in our health and care department, I mean, we still need to maintain and continue our work because amongst our current patients that we already have in Sweden, that we are meeting survivors of torture and trauma, we see an increased worriness amongst those persons who are now also exposed to news flashes or living in Sweden with severe trauma. So we also need to continue our daily work and support our existing patients. Also in a time where we expect a bit more of polemic, what could one say? I mean, there is an increased risk of a divide between refugee groups coming to Europe, because there is also a discourse now, a political discourse about refugees. You all know the history of Europe the past couple of years, since 2015, with many refugees arriving, and then the polarization here between different groups of refugees, who is a right refugee and a person who should be in a way returning home. So we need to keep that also in mind, and to kind of balance our work and support also our existing patients, despite the fact there are now new refugees coming to our countries. So we continue our work. We also have a health referral clinic who continue their work, much about questions linked to healthcare for migrants and refugees coming to Sweden. And there is now starting an influx of refugees from Ukraine. We start to receive questions only this week now, linked to access to healthcare for these persons. There is a legislation on healthcare that they should receive care they need, but there might also be differences between the regions and healthcare regions, how they work on this. So we have a role here to continue supporting individual persons, but also provide information for the official healthcare structures in terms of their obligations to ensure healthcare for newly arrived refugees. Then we work a lot on this psychosocial support. We have digital platforms, we try to be in media, we provide information, advice, support of various types. And that's both information that should be directed towards the public in Sweden, to our own volunteers in terms of supporting them with information, support and advice. But also now more and more starting to develop messages that could be useful for persons arriving in Sweden. We also know here that psychosocial support has to be offered depending on the situation of the person. You've all seen this, but many families have been separated. And that's of course an increased worrying, I mean, for these persons. I mean, what happened to the family members left behind, separations and so on. So here we also have a role to work on restoring family links as much as possible, taking the acute situation in Ukraine now and the access for the teams in the field to actually work on this. So in our department, we work a lot, I mean, just to maintain continuing and scaling up work in terms of access to healthcare and psychosocial support. But then again, I mean, we belong to the Swedish Red Cross, which is an organization working on a more broad scale as well. We also have a national department working on various activities, and we have an international department working on their activities. And just briefly here then, I mean, we have a preparation now in terms of an upcoming refugee situation in Sweden as well. I just during lunch today listened to a media broadcast from the Minister of Migration, where they expect a lot of new refugees coming to Sweden. I think the voices from you in Moldova is resonating that there are persons who are arriving in the nearby countries and who will stay there, but there are others who will transit and continue onwards. So we really expect more refugees coming to Sweden, and we have to prepare in order to support that. That also means a lot of support for our local branches on what they could do in various areas. There are again things coming up here in terms of psychosocial support, housing, restoring family links, and so on, that our colleagues in the national department work on. We work a lot on advocacy, communication, sharing messages linked to international humanitarian law. And our mandate as a Red Cross organization, where we have a unique mandate to work in conflicts. We are supporting our colleagues then in Ukraine who do this, but also in Sweden, we have to transmit messages linked to humanitarian law, obligations, rules, and so on. And that, I hope, can be something for all of us to bear in mind. I mean, this is a classic international armed conflict where the Geneva Conventions do apply, and the other parties to the conflict have obligations of various kind, and we are doing our best to remind that directly, but also to our government here in Sweden in terms of their obligations. And then also fundraising. I mean, yes, I hear your voices here in terms of the need for resources nearby. We are working a lot on fundraising now, and there's also an immense will to support here from the Swedish public. I think we raised, last figures from the weekend, we had 13 million euros just this weekend. And now it's just coming in more and more money, which is excellent. So we are fundraising a lot right now nationally. And then this is the touched or the linked to our international work, where we are then channeling those money, in particular in our own movement, to Red Cross colleagues in Europe, working in Ukraine, of course, but also in the countries neighboring Ukraine, where some of you colleagues come from. I mean, to support Red Cross organizations in Hungary, in Poland, in Moldova, and so on, where they can actually make this money or turn this money into direct assistance to persons. And then we're also working, I mean, with our own staff here to look at possible deployments to Ukraine to support our operations inside Ukraine, where we have our colleagues in the committee, in the Red Cross committee, the ICRC, just sending nurses and other staff right now this week. Yeah, I will stop there. This is just a snapshot from us, and things are changing a lot.
Thank you, Sarah. That sounds like an incredibly exhaustive list of everything that's been going on from the Swedish Red Cross. And not to say it in any other way, but I think that we would also expect and hope, and I'm glad to hear that that's what's going on from your side, but keeping the psychosocial perspective and the mental health perspective in focus at the same time that all this emergency response, and potentially sending extra staff to support those staff on the ground who are, as we hear, getting burnt out and really need support. All right, so I'm looking around and I've got Monique. Would you like to comment now?
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Monique. I'm calling from Berlin. I've never had the chance to meet any one of you. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, I'm working for the Zentrum Überleben in Berlin, and I just wanted to share very briefly an insight on the situation in Berlin, because we also have around 10,000 people arriving per day in Berlin. This is also due to that now Ukrainians or people with a Ukrainian passport can travel for free from Warsaw to Berlin and also within Germany. So that means that, of course, in Berlin, there's a huge number of refugees arriving at the central station. There's a lot of volunteers working there. Luckily and very solidarily, German or Berlin health practitioners have come together, and around 500 different doctors now offer health treatment for free in Berlin, different types of health treatment, from mental treatment to regular doctors, whatever. So this is a good thing. And also we from the Zentrum Überleben, we are also now working on different project proposals. We have on the one hand our regular phone hotline daily where people can call anyone affected by this refugee crisis. Let's say it's workers, but it's also refugees themselves can call. We are trying to step up the work in this area with more personnel. Plus, we are also, of course, always looking urgently for Ukrainian native speakers, translators. However, we also have like a little bit of training before people start working, so there's always a little bit of time delay. Additionally to that, we're planning on doing training for social workers now working in this area, in the area of trauma and psychosocial support and self-care, what also has been mentioned before, care for caretakers. This is the two immediate responses we are trying to get going within the next 1 or 2 weeks. And additionally, of course, we have some other things, but I don't want to take up too much time. Yes, so if you have any questions or if you need something from Berlin, let us know, contact us. And thank you everyone for your work. And yeah.
Thank you, Monique. Glad to have you with us for the first time, and a super important update you just gave us. I think the new thing I'm hearing here is about the hotline and something like that. I remember the Swedish Red Cross did it in the early days during COVID-19. I think this kind of, having a phone number that's always open where people can call and get that kind of instant reassurance or someone to talk to on the other end of the phone is a fantastic service. So well done with that. I'm going to go on then to Joris, please, from the Netherlands. And then we have Sebahati from Kosovo next. Thank you.
Hello to all. First of all, my support to all IRCT members who are directly involved or touched by all the happenings. And in Holland, we support everything in any way we can. So if there are possibilities that we can help, let us know. The Dutch government already, same as in Germany, takes a few actions. The Ukrainian people can travel for free, have no declaration to enter the country and can stay here. And recently, yesterday, we also organized funding for all the Ukrainian people who are arriving here for mental or otherwise healthcare. Tomorrow, I have the opportunity to inform the Minister of Welfare in Holland personally, for all the IRCT member centers that are here in Holland, and to advertise, give our recommendations about what has to be done now in the first wave and in the second wave. Because the first thought of many people is to offer trauma counseling. And we actually believe that that is only the second wave or another time. We also must do that, but first we must keep people safe and emotional covered. Second of all, what our trauma center does as well is we make the connection with the Peace Palace in Den Haag. There are negotiations going on between the government of Ukraine and Russia. Everybody knows about them, but the Peace Palace in Den Haag is now also in very negotiation with lawyers in the background, negotiation between countries, how to handle the situation. And we are involved now with the Peace Palace to recommend our healthcare, how we can bring the support and the necessary need, and to get the intention for torture, for trauma, for everything that is now going on inside the country of Ukraine, but also in the neighbor countries, and how we can support that as nationwide. Our personal center has also done a few things like we did in other crises. So we open up telephone lines, we open up webinars for professionals, also for clients from the Ukraine. And we organized the interpreters so we can, when they come here, we can offer our help. Another member also told that we must also support the refugees and the traumatized people that are already here. So we are walking that fine line to not leave anybody behind. because we must not forget that there are many countries that people come from who need help. And we also had that discussion here in Holland that people from Chad, from Syria, also had now looking with mixed feelings, and but we are trying to support them all in the best way so we can. That's a little bit of a brief look through what we can do. We are not deploying people now to the Ukraine because of the situations, but we are preparing to offer digital support to the psychologists over there, and we are also organizing trainings so people locally can help local people, and this is what we are trying to help from our name and the IRCT. So we stand together.
Excellent, Joras. Thank you very much. Again, a long list of really interesting activities. I think one that you brought to the forefront here is also influencing decision makers. So that's another piece of the great work that IRCT members can do, having access directly, as you said, to the minister, speaking on behalf of IRCT members. Maybe you can bring some of the details from this meeting with you. And we will be writing up, just for information, if anyone wants to do that, we will be doing a quick briefing after this meeting as rapidly as possible and clipping some of the cuts, the pieces of gold from this webinar into a very short, and Hugh, our communications expert, will be doing that. But this is exactly what we also can do, right? So in seeking justice and accessing more funding and informing people, with the detailed evidence from the ground, this is another piece that IRCT members around the world are doing. So we move on now to Kosovo. Thanks, Joras, for that intervention.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sebahate from Kosovo Rehabilitation Center for Torture Victims. Only 23 years ago, Kosovo went through a terrible war, and we completely understand and we know in what is going through the Albanian citizens, and we stand with Ukrainian citizens, and we stand with Ukrainian citizens, and we are in solidarity with them. So far in Kosovo, there are no any refugees coming from Ukraine because we are not near to the border. But this can change meantime, because our government committed themselves that although with limited capacities, we can receive up to 5,000 Ukrainian refugees. And in that case, of course, Kosovo Rehabilitation Center for Torture Victims is willing to support these refugees with the expertise that we built in these 23 years of working with trauma and torture consequences in Kosovo. Meanwhile, what we are doing, I have to inform you that we've been approached by two Polish psychotherapists, one of them based in United States of America and another one based in Poland, and with whom we collaborated earlier, and in order to see what would be the possibilities to extend these cooperations in terms of providing psychological first aid trainings or webinars to the persons on the ground based in Poland, whom they are working with refugees coming from Ukraine. And actually this last week, we used to have the first meeting on this matter, and our colleagues are working on defining the tools and methodologies for these trainings or webinars as a first psychological first aid for the persons in need. It will be, so far we know that it will be, let's say, in two forms for those who have some professional background, but only just to build to strengthen more their capacities on providing first clinical aid in these new circumstances. And another group would be potentially for volunteers who don't have any basic knowledge or any information regarding the approach, but to whom they voluntarily to work something, but they need some support in order to identify persons who might have went through trauma and how to provide, let's say, first aid and how to refer them to the to the special institutions. So far, this is our engagement, concrete engagement. But of course, as everybody said, situation is changing on daily basis, and with the commitment of our government to receive some refugees, we might be actively engaged in providing psychosocial support to them, for which I can say that our center is pretty well equipped, but of course we have limited capacities in covering all of the needs, but at least we have pretty extensive experience in offering psychosocial support and treating and healing trauma consequences of the war or of the conflicts, and mainly and especially identifying survivors of sexual violence and identifying survivors of rape, or giving particular or special support after. So far, this is what we are engaged, and are the for future we can tell more if we have something concrete cooperation with this psychotherapists from Poland. I will of course we will inform you, and we will let you know if there are further steps in this direction.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarahate. This again illustrates a fantastic piece of the work we do, right? Connecting people. So they knew to come to you because you have this kind of professional skill set. I think the other new piece that you bring onto the table here is, looking at sexual or gender-based violence or the use of rape as a tool of war. And this could very well come into play and be something that we have to be much, very aware of and be able to respond to if that begins to show up in the statistics around how people have been impacted by what's going on in Ukraine. So thanks for bringing these new pieces to the table.
You're welcome.
Hugh, I'd like to go on to you, and then I have Maria Angeles from Spain.
Thanks a lot. Let me lower the hand. I think Joris has just left, hasn't he? I just wanted to follow up on him on how he's working with the Peace Palace in The Hague, but I think he's gone. So I'll ask my second question. And this is kind of a big overarching one. Everyone calls for an end to the war, right? It's an international crime. It's the war of aggression. It's crimes against humanity. It's war crimes. But as an organization with decades of experience in trauma, can we, as IRCT, talk about like the trauma-informed basis for ending war sooner rather than later? Can we sort of marshal some evidence that the longer people stay in cities that are being bombarded and starved, the worse the trauma gets? It's kind of obvious, we all know it, but can we actually point to evidence? Because from the communications perspective, what I always want to do with IRCT is provide the evidence basis on which the usual political, political requests are made. So, everyone knows torture's wrong. It's obvious, but we know torture's wrong for a load of medical reasons. Can we say war is wrong for a load of medical reasons? So if anyone can help me with that, point me in the direction of evidence, or even speak to it during this webinar now about what do we know about long-term conflict and what it does to generations. And I mean, maybe we could talk about maybe Sabahate, from the perspective of the Balkans, what did that do to people? And Layla, from Georgia, what do we know about conflict and trauma that means we can say this war has to stop? And here's the evidence. So that's my kind of big question. Thanks.
Okay, so there is a call for inputs. If we end up not having time to respond, you can put your information in the chat, or you can say to Hugh, hey, contact me afterwards. I have the evidence that can be, part of the argumentation here or part of our rationale. So please respond to Hugh on that one. Maria Angeles, but let's just be conscious we want as many colleagues as possible to speak. So short interventions. Over to you, Maria.
Okay, thanks a lot. I will need Berta to help me to translate because my English, is not so good, and I want everybody to understand me. And I'm also very impacted with with the things that it's happened and saw in television, and I prefer Berta to help me.
I can do that.
Gracias, Berta. Gracias a todas las compañeras que nos han contado también la situación en el resto de Europa y además que están más cercanas y emocionalmente, lógicamente, también están más implicadas. Nuestro país prevé la llegada de un gran número de personas y de familias refugiadas. CEAR como organización está gestionada directamente por el Ministerio de Inclusión, al igual que el resto de las organizaciones sociales, Cruz Roja, ACCEM, con lo cual en estos momentos se están llevando a cabo reuniones entre el Ministerio y las organizaciones para ver cómo se va a gestionar todo este proceso de acogida.
Okay, Maria,
So now, yeah,
we need a translation. Go.
I'll just translate. Yeah, so well, she says, thank you for all the solidarity here. She's mentioning that they're about to, they're seeing that they will be receiving a big number of refugees. And CEAR, which is the center, the organization that Maria Ángeles works for, is under the Ministry of Inclusion, and that will be now being coordinated with other organizations to look at how to deal with this situation. I guess she will explain that now.
Y en estos momentos, ayer y hoy, se están llevando a cabo estas reuniones en las que el propio ministerio hará un reparto más o menos equitativo de las familias, de las personas y económicamente cuánto nos corresponde a las organizaciones para poder dar servicio y soporte y pues también contratar a las personas que sean necesarias para suplir esas necesidades, puesto que nosotras ya tenemos todos los servicios ahora mismo y todos los centros de acogida saturados de las personas refugiadas que entran por la frontera sur. Y ahora sí.
So yeah, they're saying that within this, she's saying that within this plan, they will also be looking at how to divide on an equal basis the support to families, also economic support, and also hiring extra personnel to deal with the massive amount of refugees and families coming.
Mm-hmm. Lo que la previsión del ministerio es que cuando lleguen las personas directamente sin necesidad de seguir la directiva normal de solicitud de protección internacional, entren en el sistema de protección nacional de asilo y luego ya más tarde puedan formar su solicitud. Y lo previsible es que se les conceda desde el principio una especie de protección subsidiaria temporal. Y aquellas personas que hayan sufrido tortura o violaciones o hayan sido utilizadas como arma de guerra o casos particulares de militantes políticos que puedan acogerse al asilo, serán las personas que soliciten asilo. El resto de personas y familias lo previsible es que se documenten con un documento provisional.
You have to give her a chance to translate.
Yeah. So what now she's saying that the national system of asylum will be kind of opening a, let's say, fast track, or she said subsidiary temporary protection for those families coming. And she's also saying that those who will have been subjected to torture, rape, and any other reasons that can fall under the normal asylum procedures, then they will be able to apply to that, but the others will go through this protection track.
Y como solicitantes de protección internacional tendrán derecho primero a una primera fase, que es la fase de acogida, donde las personas están, al igual que el resto de refugiados, en pequeños centros o en hostales. Es en un plazo de 30 días donde nos permiten, con un equipo interdisciplinar, hacer una evaluación de las necesidades de la familia y de las personas y una identificación para poder luego mandarlos e enviarlos a los centros de acogida especializados dentro del sistema, bien sean de acogida a personas refugiadas normales o bien sean porque tienen algún tipo de vulnerabilidad, adicciones, patología dual, discapacidad o trauma complejo.
Okay, so she's saying that the first phase of these asylum seekers will be the how would you say acogida? The phase of maybe Carmen can help me here, but
host,
to
host them to host them.
Yeah, good, thank you. And then they would be sent to centers and hostels for 30 days where they would be assessed, their needs would be evaluated, and then they would be redirected to specific host centers.
Okay, Maria, we just have to ask you to wrap up now, please, with what your center is doing. We can read a lot online about what's going on in different countries, but we have two colleagues that need to speak from Turkey and from Lebanon. So if you can just 2 more sentences about what your center is doing. Thanks.
Ok, nuestro centro ahora mismo está, por una parte, atendiendo a todas las familias refugiadas que ya están en España instaladas desde el conflicto que comenzó en el 2014. España tiene una de las más grandes comunidades instaladas de personas ucranianas, con lo cual a nuestras oficinas se están acercando muchísimas personas que quieren ayudar a salir a las familias que tienen en Ucrania o personas que les ha pillado la guerra aquí, qué pueden hacer para solicitar asilo, para no tener que volver. También hemos recibido solicitudes para atención de personas de origen ruso que están sufriendo agresiones o insultos por el hecho de ser rusos y ahora mismo lo que estamos es organizando, gestionando, reuniéndonos con el ministerio y organizando la llegada y ampliando los dispositivos y preparando todo para cuando la gente llega, entrenando también, formando al nuevo personal para poder identificar y tratar mejor a estas personas que van a empezar a llegar en breve y que serán incluidas dentro de nuestros centros igual que el resto.
Thank you very much. Beth, if you could just conclude there. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically she's saying that they're now providing services and attention to these to families who were already refugees from the 2014 conflicts, a lot of them from Ukraine. They're also trying to reunite families, members of families who are now in Ukraine. Then others that are also applying for asylum to not be brought back to Ukraine. And then also Russians who are suffering from different types of aggressions. And then FEAR, so the organization, they're now coordinating with the ministry, organizing the arrival and also activating all the protocols.
Thanks. That's a very impressive response from the center in Spain, hearing there are a lot of Ukrainians that have come to Spain over the past, so there's quite a depth of knowledge there. I'm going to now ask our colleagues from Lebanon and then finally from Turkey to speak. If you could just briefly, thank you. Carmen?
Hi, Lisa. First of all, I wanted to salute everyone really for your amazing work supporting Ukrainians, and we are totally supportive. If we can help in any way, we would be more than happy to do so. I wanted to talk in our center what we're doing. We are not working yet with we have not received any Ukrainians, I think, because geographically we're a bit far, but what we have, of course, worked a lot with Syrian refugees under crises, of course. And we had like a major crisis around 2 years ago, the Beirut blast in the port. So we had to respond very quickly and immediately to the emerging needs. And considering that, first of all, when it comes to the Syrian crisis, we have more than 1.5 million registered Syrian refugees in Lebanon, which is honestly a huge country, a huge number, and a very unstable country. So there's a lot of need. We try to support people as much as we can when it comes to mental health and health needs. But of course, there's a lot of need for basic assistance support, which is a major factor, I think, in any crisis where we're supposed to try to support people in that sense. Also, in a very turbulent country, when, of course, there are so many reminders of wars in Lebanon. So refugees, when they hear the sounds of airplanes, like warplanes in Lebanon, or an explosion like the one in the Beirut port, they really remembered, they got flashbacks of the war. So that really, it required a specific form of intervention for these individuals. We offer, of course, trainings, ongoing trainings. After, for example, when it comes to the Beirut blast, we had to offer PFA trainings to the team. We had to intervene only 2 days after the explosion on like different levels, whether it's medical, psychosocial, or even at the basic needs level. And we had to develop, of course, as well a hotline for people to call if they need help. We're there to support in any way possible. And but the team, of course, was very overwhelmed. You know, like working on the field is very different. So we had to do a lot of care for caregivers. Actually, on a daily basis, we were having briefing calls of how their field day was. And a lot of the team members had some burnouts, actually. So having us support each other, listening to each other's needs, having even external supervisors support us in that was very helpful. So of course, if Restart can support in any way when it comes to care for caregivers, supporting frontliners, we are ready to do so. And my colleague Celine, who worked as well on the field, she was very involved. She can maybe just give a bit more details on what we were doing.
Yes, so we were at first we worked on the psychological needs, and we went to assess the psychological needs. We assessed also the staff organizing places, organizing tools and logistics. Then we went to, after 2 days only after the blast, we went to organize everything and support the victims. So we were doing PFA at first, and then we started to realize that there's a need of basic needs and all the humanitarian calls. So we started to distribute kits of first aid kits, first aid support from our medical team, baby supplies, food, educational materials, diapers, etc. And after the PFA on the psychological level, we worked also on the PSS, psychosocial support, on the victims who were also affected and still affected after maybe 1 month or 2 months. After the PSS, we referred the victims also who were affected also after 3 months and 4 months, still affected and still traumatized, to the specialized mental health services in our center in Restart in Beirut. So the work was holistic, not only psychological, also on the medical level and on the assistance and all the basic needs.
Thank you. I think, and it's super important, and this is a message where you're just reinforcing the message that was given before, the need for having these two things happen together, if at all possible. But I also heard you talking about, Carmen, this thing about, you know, daily check-ins or debriefing with staff in the field. Yes. So they can, maybe that will help their stress levels, and also having external supervisors support you. So, and some really cool learnings here and things that, you know, we as a network are able, as a movement, are able to provide for each other. Thank you very much for bringing the reality of what goes on in Lebanon into play here, because it does have some application. Thank you. And then we'll go to Turkey. Metin, please.
First of all, thank you very much for this meeting, Lisa, and all our colleagues, of course. We have very limited time, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, something like that. So in 5 points, I would like to share my feeling and thoughts. First of all, I have to say that we are in deep shame because finally we haven't succeeded to prevent such an invasion, which cannot be acceptable and which is absolutely a gross, serious human rights violation, crimes, as our friends told. As humanity, we are finally a subject of this life. In 2022, it is unbelievable, unbelievable. Like the other cases in Syria, in Iraq, in our other regions, in the Afghanistan or the other, in any way, it's a very big shame. And I would like also, I want to Leila and Lila, I don't know whether they are following or not, Kardolia, Ludmila, about your a kind of a re-traumatization, your memories in your countries in the current time. In Turkey, there are approximately 20,000 only Ukrainian citizens who came from the Ukraine during these days. And till now, unfortunately, we couldn't succeed to reach them, or they didn't, or they couldn't have a chance to apply to our centers. So we are monitoring it, we are following, we try to reach them. So we don't have an exact experiences about this situation. But I would like to say that, firstly, for today, all of us, I think, should try to effort for the ending of this invasion, ending of this war. Each day is very important. Each hour is very important. Via all efforts within our countries, via international human rights mechanisms, because I have to say that international human rights mechanisms, unfortunately, mostly lost their spirit, their functions, unfortunately. So the third parties try to say that, but all kinds of such kinds of third parties might be a little bit problematic. At the same time, of course, as a member of IRCT, it is very meaningful to share our solidarity with our colleagues in Ukraine and in Russia. We couldn't reach our colleagues in Russia because it's understandable. So I will be very happy, Leila, if you can share some contact details of them with us, if it is, of course, if it is possible, of course. To hear our voice itself might be very meaningful, for example. So such a solidarity atmosphere can start to be in contact with them. And I agree with our all colleagues who suggested to support our colleagues who are working at the borders, neighbor countries, etc. We have different methods, of course. We are also ready about it. And also naturally, IFEC, Forensic Evidence Group, of course, have to start to prepare some missions in the coming period, not today, naturally, in the coming period, naturally, to start a well-structured missions, not only one group, different groups, for example, as IRCT. So we have now only 1 minute.
Yeah.
Have to stop here. So sorry.
Thank you. No, Metin, fantastic point. Also, especially your last point. And I also praise you for this phrase, deep shame. I really think that represents, I think, very eloquently what we're all feeling. I would like to just in the last minute invite, we also have colleagues from as far as Canada and from Australia on the call with us today. I think that really shows that the breadth of this global organization. I just want to make sure, is there 2 words from Canada or from Australia? Would you like to have the floor before we wrap up this session? Jacques, please.
Oui, bonjour from Montreal, Quebec. Thank you so much for organizing this today. This is, I think, very, very important. We are a small organization in Montreal, and yet just in the city of Montreal in Quebec, we have, I believe, 44,000 Ukrainians or people from Ukrainian origin. So, I mean, this is substantial. In Western Canada, we also do have a very large segment of the population who came from Ukraine. So this is important. So we are expecting to receive quite a few people. I don't know how many at this point, but to me, and this is my first such meeting with IRCT, as you know, Lisa, and we want to collaborate more and do our part and do our share, certainly in the field of communications and possibly even fundraising. So anyway, we are going to be in contact with you. Very impressed also with what I heard from so many different places. And of course, what moves me the most is the emotion that has been expressed by everybody and the hard work that's behind all that. So thank you so much for being all there. This is amazing. You are giving me this morning a lot of energy.
You are so welcome and welcome on board, and really happy to hear from you. We will now take the plane rapidly to Australia. Would our colleagues there like to end with some sentences?
Thanks, Lisa. I just want to say thank you to our colleagues who've talked tonight, especially Lela and the others from the neighbouring countries. We feel a long way away at the moment. We do have colleagues here who've had family who've just managed to get out of Ukraine this week. We know that there'll be people coming here on new refugee visas in the future, but for now, we have that little bit of space in between. If there's anything that we can do to support our colleagues in those neighbouring countries so that you know that you're not alone, that we are thinking of you frequently in the work that you're doing, let us know what we can do to be of support.
Thank you so very much. And on a closing note, I would like to inform also the Danish Center Dignity, who couldn't be with us today, but they have also just received a massive grant to help the psychosocial impacted children in Ukraine. As well, they've been on the border, trying to support colleagues, Ukrainian colleagues. And I think they will be doing even more as we move forward. So you're hearing, and I think there could be more and more pieces of information like this. I'm really proud that you took the time to be with us today and to support our frontliners. So our real heartfelt solidarity goes out to the centers in Georgia, Moldova, in Ukraine, of course, in Russia, all in the area, Romania and Poland, who are receiving. We will do our best to support you. We will also be trying to formalize, I know we have Angela from Freedom from Torture and Celeste from Reprissi, who said they will really be standing there if you need support as far as staff that need someone else to talk to resonate with, to get some support from. These are 2 that you can call out to. And we will continue to try and influence decision makers, Metin, as you said, to stop these atrocities. And back to Hugh's point, if we could get any of your information and evidence about what war and people living under siege like this, under bombardments, what the impact is on society and the cost to society if this doesn't end soon, that would be really helpful. So any evidence that you know of, studies that you've partaken in, please send them to Hugh, our communicator. And otherwise, keep looking out for the What's Cooking emails we send around, where you get more information about what's going on in IRCT, trying to keep us glued together. I don't really think we need the glue. We seem to be really strong. The cement seems to be holding. So Thank you very much. Please notice the email in the chat for our communications lead, which is you. If you have anything to send, just send it over that way. Thank you very much, all of you, and good luck and solidarity and support for all those working in the front line or supporting behind the scenes who are not asking for any praise, but are doing the work anyhow. Take care out there.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
all.
you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Adios.
Adios.
Thank you very much.
Adios.
Adios.
Adios. Bye.
Adios.
Berta,
Who?
while we're still on the call,
Berta.
Excuse me?
Marianne Heiles told me that Power has written books about the trauma effects of war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Maybe easy.
psychological trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, psychological consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's interview Power.
Let's interview Power. Just get him up on the, yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think that now he's in the Pyrenees, taking some days off.
Is he?
Some needed
Okay.
days
I'll
off.
drop him a line. So when he's back,
Yeah.
I'll just do another little Zoom call with him.
Yeah, he'll be happy to do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Nasser, I hope you had a chance. Nasser, you're still on the call. I hope you had a chance to, I didn't see you wanting to speak up, but I hope you know next time you're more than welcome to speak if you like.
Yeah. Both Nassers.
Both Nassers. Okay. Take care, guys. Well done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good. Hugh, I took some notes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm gonna wrap them up. I can share them with you if you're gonna put something together.
Yes,
I mean,
great.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I'm
if
just
that
gonna-
will help, but you know.
Yeah, notes are good. And I'll get the
Just in
transcription of this
Okay,
now. Okay.
good. Bye, Hugh.
See you later.